Hello and welcome to the solutions video for assignment 6.06 number 3. This is a Kakuro puzzle. So this is one of these that we see here with the grids. The numbers on the corner tell us what the numbers in that space add up to. I'm going to start down here because the bottom left and the upper right either be a good starting point because they both have a 2x2 space. That's a really good candidate for finding numbers that only have one solution. For example, when you're finding two numbers that add up to 5, the highest possible number you can have is a 4. But when you want two numbers that add up to 13, 4 is the lowest number you can have. So what's the only number that can fit in both? Which makes this a 1, this a 9, and that a 4. These two add up to 5. These three have to add up to 7. So that's now a 2. So we have a 2 here. These have to add up to 7, which means the largest number we can have in this row is a 6. But 6 is the smallest number we can have in this column because these three add up to 23. The only way to do that with three numbers is with 6, 8, and 9. So that's a 6, and that's a 1. If this is a 1, this has to be an 8. Because these two numbers that pair with the 6 are 8 and 9, and we can't have an 8, that has to be a 9. This has to be an 8. These add up to 17, so now we have a 4. So we've already made some good headway here. Now notice these 5 numbers add up to 16. The only way to add up to 16 with 5 numbers is to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. If you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 smallest possible numbers, they add up to 15. You need one more, but if you add 1 to any of 1, 2, 3, and 4, you duplicate a number already on the list. So these have to be 1, 2, 3, and 6 in some order. The top one can't be 6 because this whole row adds up to 6. And we might be able to eliminate others when we look at them more closely. But for now, we'll just fill in the 1, 2, 3, 6. Now, let's go to the upper right-hand corner and start working back that way. Similar to what we had in the bottom left, the smallest number you can have in two that add up to 15 is 6. That's also the largest number you can have when two numbers add up to 7. So we just fill in what the other ones must be. That's 4. This one has to be an 8. So these two numbers add up to 11. But if you have three numbers that add up to 6, they have to be 1, 2, and 3. This one is a 3 because 3 is the smallest number you can have adding up to a 9, or adding up to 12, sorry. We can't have less than a 1 or a 2. So that's a 2. This can now no longer be a 2 or a 3, so that's a 1. There's a 2 here, and a 3 here. So let us fill in some of our other unique sums. These have to be 1 and 3. That's the only way to make 4 out of 2 numbers. We have 6 numbers here that add up to 38, so we're missing 3 that add up to 9. Now here, there's only 3 ways to make 23, or one way to make 23 out of 3 numbers, and that's with 6, 8, and 9. There's only 2 ways to make 16 out of 2 numbers, and that's with 7 and 9, but this cannot be 7 because it has to be 6, 8, or 9 from the row, and either 7 or 9 from the column. So that has to be the 9 for this row. Now, up here, again, we have that same intersection. 23 this way out of 3 cells, 16 that way out of 2. So we're guaranteed to have a 9 here and a 7 here. So then these two are either 6 or 8, but this one, it's a set of 5 that adds up to 16. Therefore, that one is the 6. This one is the 8, and that's a 1. We have 6 numbers here that add up to 24, so it's missing 3 that add up to 21. That is going to narrow things down considerably in the future as well. Let's start filling in the rest of these, because if these are 6, this has to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. This cannot be a 1, because vertically they add up to 11. So 2 is the smallest to go with a 9. Now here we have 5 numbers that add up to 34. If we take the 4 highest numbers, 6, 7, 8, and 9, they add up to 30. The only way to make 34 out of 5 numbers is to have 4, 6, 7, 8. So therefore, that is where the 4 goes. This has to be only 2 or 3 because there's a 1 there. This is the only spot left in this row that's allowed to be the 1 that we must have. So that's a 1. So now we've placed a 1 and a 2 here. So that column just leaves us with a 3 and a 6. Up here we have either an 8 or a 9, because it's either 8 plus 3 or 9 plus 2. If this is 9, we would need 2 numbers that add up to 8, and there's no way to make that happen. If it's an 8, we need 2 numbers that add up to 3. So we seem to have made an error somewhere, because 3, if these 2 numbers add up to 3, we'd have to have a 1 and a 2. So we have an, oh, never mind. No. I was thinking where these were add up to 11, but they don't. These add up to 13. Okay, so if this was a 6, then the lowest possible total we can have is a 14. So that's not a 6. That is the 3. These have to add up to then 10. With an 8 and 9 there, that leaves a 1 or 2 here, which gives us an 8 or 9 up there. Again, 3 numbers here that add up to 23, that has to be an 8 or 9. We have 6, 8, or 9. The only other way to fill this out is with a 4 and a 7 in some combination. So these have to be 6, 8, or 9. Because we have to add up to 9, that's either a 6 or 8, which makes this a 1 or a 3. Now we have 6 numbers here that add up to 21. The only way to do that is with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It has to be the 6 lowest numbers. So that can't be a 7. That has to be a 4. And that makes this a 7. So with a 15 here, we either have a 6 and a 9, or with the 8, that would be a 7. But again, vertically, the highest number we're allowed to have is a 6. So that has to be a 6, which means we have to have 9 here. So we have to have an 8 here, a 9 here, a 1 here, a 9 here, a 2 here, and a 3 here. Notice how we get these nice long chain reactions filling in a lot of cells at once. It's not even done. We come back and we have to have a 6 here and a 3 here. So these top 3 numbers have to be the 1, the 2, and the 5. We can't have a 5 that adds up to 10 because we'd have 2 5s, and that's not allowed. So we have a 1, a 2, and a 5 coming up this way. Notice horizontally here we have 6 numbers that add up to 21 again. So the smallest number we can have in the 2 adding up to 15 is a 6. That's the largest we can have coming across adding up to 21. So that has to be a 6, this has to be a 9, and these 2 numbers, therefore, have to add up to 8. So that means we either have 6, 7, or 3. Of those, we cannot have a 7, because we already have one in that column. We cannot have a 3, because then we cannot make the other 4 numbers add up to 31. The upper limit is 30. So that has to be a 6. These 2 now add up to 15, so 2 is the only number left here, which makes this a 1, and this a 5. We also now know that that's a 9. So the only numbers we have left to fill out that column are 4 and 8. Now this 4 in 2 cells is a dead giveaway. There's only 2 ways to make 4 out of 2 cells. That's with a 1 and a 3. This 3 says that has to be a 1. So this is a 3. So if this were the 4, these two would add up to 7. We'd have to have 13 here. And that's way too large for one cell. So that has to be the 8, the higher option, and this is a 4. Which leaves us with a 2 here and a 9 here. So we have completed most of our puzzle. Notice here they're even giving us the possible combinations across the bottom for 24 over 6 squares and the like. So we can see here, because we have to have a 7, the only possible option in the list, because it's 24 over 6 squares with a 7, is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. So this has to be a 6. This has to be an 8, because 8 was not allowed. So again, if we hit the 24, 2 and 4 are the only numbers that we have left unaccounted for. So we have to have a 2 and a 4 in our sum. All right. So if we have the 2 and the 4 here, these numbers are either 7 or 5. We've already determined up here that that's a 7, therefore this is a 2, and that's a 4. Oh, sorry, that one can't be the 4. So we'll X that out. Right, that one is the 5 that it takes. I misclicked when we were filling those out. So now vertically for if we click on that 34, it's 6 and 9 are the two numbers we have left to place. We obviously can't have a 9 and 3 numbers that add up to 9. So that's the 6 and this is the 9. But these two have to add up to 3. So that's a 1, that's a 2, which means that must be a 4, and that must be a 3. And this concludes 6.06, number 3.